Hey, Mike, there is a city in California that doesn't just have big lakes.
How big are they?
They're mammoth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson, Badge Cam Today, here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from a city in California that has larger than average size lakes. Mammoth Lakes, California.
Download the ASP Unlimited app for all the content you love from Active Self-Protection and more with no interference from YouTube. No ads, no age gates, exclusive videos, seminars, classes, and more on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. Hit the link in the description or download ASP Unlimited from your app store today.
Officers are on scene because of 911 calls. The guy who is standing just to the right of the three dumpster set and to the left of the kind of dumpster off to the side has a couple of really large grapefruit-sized rocks. And he has been observed throwing rocks at cars that are driving by on the road. Of course, that is a threat of death or great bodily injury to those motorists. And so that milkshake is going to bring all the constabulary to the yard. We have badge cam audio. Let's listen in.
What at gunpoint, he's holding rocks in his hand.
Relay.
On the ground.
Drop it.
Come here.
Come on. Hey, relax.
Come here.
Put. We'll talk to you, but put the rocks down.
Come over here. Come over here. One around. Bueno, top zero. It's Jesus Uribe Corona. Copy Uribe.
Going to 144 Sam 1. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Don't move! Move! Hey, hold cover.
So,
Hold cover.
say right there.
I'll go into cuff. You guys hold cover? Roll over. Volteate.
Glove up if you can. You're good.
One at gunpoint. He's holding rocks in his hands. Put the rocks on the ground.
Drop it.
Come here.
Come on. Hey, relax.
Come here.
We'll talk to you, but put the rocks down.
Come over here. Come over here. Mano on top zero with Jesus Uribe Corona. I'm not chasing him. All right, hold. Don't move! Don't move! Hey, hold cover.
PD provided some stills and some additional kind of annotation. You can see he's got a couple of big rocks in his hand there. He's arguing with the deputies. Here, he's going to cross the sidewalk and run at the other two, again, a detective and a officer. As he comes up, he kind of pulls up, and you're going to see him kind of start throwing those rocks. He's making a motion like he's winding up to throw. And when he does, those officers, the detective and the officer, open fire and hit him multiple times. Now, there's the size of the rock. So you can see as they're walking up on it, it's a good size rock. It's bigger than a baseball. And our perp didn't make it. He ended up passing away because of his injuries. The family said that they are going to file a lawsuit because he only had a rock. Now, I know this one's going to cause some folks to be really frustrated because, wait a minute, he just had big rocks. Okay, let's talk about it in the lessons. An interesting side note here, Mike, is that this here in Mammoth Lakes, their PD incorporated, they stood up their police department in 1986. This is the first officer-involved shooting that they have had. None of these cops went to work this day thinking, I'm going to be first to have an officer-involved shooting today, because they literally have almost 40 years of tradition of not shooting anybody in their jurisdiction. But you know, you don't wake up thinking, hey, this guy's going to start being a deadly threat to people running down the road either. And that's why every day you go to work, you say your prayers, you live clean, and you be ready for the moment.
Yeah, mental and spiritual fitness is critical. I'll say this about that. You know, being the first one to have shot someone in your department's history is not a great honor. No one wants to do it. Nobody wants to be the first or the second or third for that matter. I've never met a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, or an agent who is itching to get into a gunfight. I think a lot of people think that that's, you know, there's a lot of guys out there like that. I never met one who was just, you know, in a big hurry to use deadly force on someone. And I think we're going to, you know, as we progress through this video, John and I are going to discuss this at length. This is a tough one. And we completely understand how some viewers of this video would see this and be like, I don't know, I don't like it. That was my first impression. I don't love this. I wish this could have gone a different way. I wish something else could have happened. There could have been a different outcome. But at the end of the day, the important thing to remember is the suspect is the one who determines the outcome of this in most cases. And he determined the outcome of this one.
He did determine the outcome of this one. Again, we have to remember the context. This guy is throwing these grapefruit-sized rocks at cars that are passing by, and that's not just a threat to the people in, you know, just the cars themselves. A rock that big can penetrate a windshield and kill somebody. A recent case out of Colorado that 3 teenagers were one of them sentenced to 45 years for killing a woman by throwing rocks at her in her car while she was driving down the freeway. So because it killed her. So these kinds of things can absolutely be deadly. I want to note here that our 2 officers, of course, they live in this environment. They know this kind of intuitively, but a good reminder, man, when you're traversing this kind of slippery terrain, number 1, your muzzle discipline needs to be 100% on point. Number 2, your trigger discipline needs to be 100% on point, because this is a really easy time if you slip to have a negligent discharge if you're not careful, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say this about that. I know these guys work in, you know, it's Mammoth Lakes. They live by a giant ski resort, so it's frequently snowy and icy there. So they have experience dealing with this kind of terrain. But the muzzle discipline is, in this case, is the hard part for me, because if you do slip, right, I mean, you're potentially going to put that hand down to try to stop yourself, or the position if your muzzle is going to move in a way that you can't control because you're literally falling over. So I would prefer, honestly, this is maybe a stretch, but I would prefer that, you know, one of them hold cover while the other one runs across the snow real quick, and then they switch positions, like almost like a bounding Overwatch thing, just to not have a gun out. I don't love it, because as John said, you can have that. I think it's parasympathetic is the word, but you know, if one hand is grabbing something, the other hand will instinctively sort of make the same motion. Well, that's doubly true if you're slipping and falling. I just don't know that if you haven't practiced something like that, which no one does because it's not really practical, it worries me. So if you're out there watching this as an officer or as a private citizen who might have to traverse this kind of terrain, maybe think about holstering up, because he's so far away at this point. He's not really immediately a threat. So just something to think about.
I also want to mention here that our perp is the one who pushed the distance here. He's the one who compressed the distance. He's running away. There's a couple other officers over there. He could have cut just right on running down the sidewalk, and then they would have had to chase him. But he's the one who said, oh, here's a couple cops. I'm going to run right at him and throw one of these rocks at him. And so, again, he compressed the distance here, which compressed the time, which made things into a critical situation, not the officers. So that gives them a little bit more leeway, in my opinion. I want to note here the size of the rock. That is not a small rock. That is not a baseball. That's like a grapefruit. So if somebody runs up and hits you in the head with that, or hits you on the hand with it, that's going to put you in the hospital. So that is the definition of a deadly threat. Now, at some point, you get far enough away that it's not, but at 10, 15 feet, yeah, I think it is. I also want to note here, Mike, that I do think that our officers, after the shooting happened, did a darn fine job of communicating with each other in order to get cover, in order to, you know, cover the suspect, get him into custody, get some help to him. So good communication on their part.
Yeah, agreed on the communication. You know, I think the officer who we're seeing in this video in the foreground is a sergeant, is a supervisor. He kind of, or the one wearing the camera, I can't remember, but that officer, that sergeant, whatever it is, kind of starts directing people as to where to go, what to do, which is great. You see that a lot in like Southern California, LAPD. Those guys are really good about, hey, if whoever the senior officer is on scene will direct the movements, especially post-shooting. You want to make sure we don't get in each other's field of fire, et cetera, et cetera. A word on rocks. Most of my career was spent as a federal agent in Southern California, specifically San Diego, and I worked near the border. And one of the things that would happen with, unfortunately, a lot of frequency near the border is Border Patrol agents. I was not a Border Patrol agent, but Border Patrol agents would get rocks hurled at them from across the fence and from down on top of the fence. And on more than one occasion, I had to look at video of the inside of a Border Patrol vehicle covered in blood and bone matter from a giant rock being thrown at a Border Patrol agent, and him or her being terribly badly injured, maybe even killed. So you have to bear in mind, although we would like to see a different outcome, again, this guy put the quarter in the jukebox and decided to approach officers with a giant rock capable of doing great bodily injury or potentially even death. He decided to go up there and make a throwing motion. And at the end of the day, these officers had mere seconds to react to what they were being presented with.
I think that's an important point. You know, we think, okay, we sit here in under the cool light of reflection, which is fine, but they only have the seconds that they have. And so in this very compressed amount of time, this guy comes up on him, they're pointing guns at him, telling him to stop. He makes that motion like, hey, I'm going to throw this rock at you. And they have to decide in that split second, am I likely to go to the hospital? And you can see him here wind up to throw, and then that's when the shot breaks, is he starts turning around just as the shot breaks. But that windup sure looked like he was going to hit them with that. Now I will say this. I think if you were somebody who had a very high level of empty-handed skills, maybe you went so far that you keep a shield in the back of your car. And so you thought, hey, this guy's got rocks, so I'm going to get my shield out so that I'm safe. And you were posted up with that. Or you realized, hey, at 15 feet, he's not going to be able to hit me with that rock, or I'll take that risk because I'm going to beat this guy up on his way down because I'm going to use my empty-handed skills. Okay, fine. Maybe you've gotten that much training, and if you invested in that much yourself, maybe you can do that. But I think the average officer whose entire training is department provided defensive tactics, he doesn't have that level of skill. He just doesn't have it. And I know we tend to think of our officers as meat-eating crime fighters who are kung fu masters, but you know, the reality is they get around 30 or 40 hours of map-based training, and that's about what they get for their initial training, and then some very occasional refreshers. And so that's not even like white belt level stuff, Mike.
Yeah, and I've never seen any training. And I was in law enforcement for a long time. I never saw, gave, or witnessed any training that involved an alternate way of dealing with someone who's hurling, a 10-pound rock at your head. Unfortunately, I think had this gone on longer, right? Potentially, had he run down the street like John alluded to earlier, and they had more time to formulate a plan, there might have been a different outcome. But this all happened within a space of 30 seconds from the time the officers got out of their car, other than him running back and forth and jaw-jacking with them. This went down very, very quickly, and there wasn't really time for them to go, okay, I'm going to get the beanbag, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. These two officers who we're seeing here who did the shooting weren't even really on duty, on regular active duty. They were attending a meeting, I think, at like a school board meeting or something like that, or a planning meeting at the library, and they just happened to hear this go out. They didn't have their cameras on for that reason, because they weren't planning on getting into a shooting. They were planning on attending a meeting. And so this all went down so quickly. There wasn't time to come up with some grand plan to do this or that, to do something different. And again, as John said, this guy compressed the distance and the time by approaching them, in this really aggressive manner and doing this throwing motion. So while, at the end of the day, I hate this. I wish this could have gone differently. I think this guy obviously had some sort of mental issues he was struggling with. I would have liked to have seen another outcome in this. But at the end of the day, I don't see what else they could have done in this moment. Pepper spray, I preach pepper spray a lot. Pepper spray with recoil, preferably, that'll paint someone's face. But there's just not time, and I'm just not going to risk my life or, my orbital sockets being intact on pepper spray, stopping somebody who's at this point presenting a deadly threat. John, did you have any closing thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the detective and the officer who came out of a library meeting in order to do this, expecting them to be full kitted in tactical gear, they weren't dispatched to this call. And that bit of context really matters. And all of a sudden, we're going to go to help, and that's smart and good because they want to provide some more cover for these officers. And then our other guy, our perpetrator here, compressed the time and forced the situation. So, I mean, I get that. I don't love it. I don't love the way that it looks, but I think it's an understandable use of deadly force. I think it is a justified use of deadly force. And because of that, I'm going to say these officers covered their ass.